Basketball legend LeBron James' 18-year-old son is currently hospitalized and recovering from cardiac arrest after collapsing during a University of Southern California team workout on Monday. Bronny James is currently out of the ICU and in stable condition, according to his family. Now, ex-CEO Elon Musk replied to a tweet about the incident and did not hold back in speculating about the cause of James' heart attack. Quote, "We cannot ascribe everything to the vaccine, but by the same token, we cannot ascribe nothing. Myocarditis is a known side effect. The only question is whether it is rare or common."
Not everyone is on board with the theorizing, however. Conservative journalist Curtis Hook tweeted, "I'm just asking questions. People need to shut it down right now. A teenager with their entire life ahead of him is battling for his life. Not the time for any of that. Stop being conspiracy theorists for the sake of it."
Meanwhile, here's what CNN's Sanjay Gupta had to say about Bronny's incident. Let's watch.
Well, so he's 18 years old. Sounds like he had this sudden cardiac arrest. There was a very fast, it sounds like, resuscitation, taken to the hospital. But as you point out, given the fact that he was in the intensive care unit, but was then able to leave the intensive care unit and is on a general care floor, that is obviously the most important sort of headline there. Obviously, the cardiac arrest, what exactly triggered that, what caused that, that's what the doctors are going to be sort of investigating over the next several days. This is rare. We know that a few thousand people who are young athletes do suffer sudden cardiac arrests every year. There's all sorts of different reasons that can happen, electrical abnormalities of the heart. We know, for example, with Damar Hamlin, it was related to something known as cordis commotio, which is a blow to the chest wall. We don't know what happened specifically with Bronny James.
Yeah, Damar Hamlin was another athlete injury that people were speculating, some online, that it might have had something to do with vaccination. Although there, the video of him being hit, it looked to me like that would it seemed, if you watch the video, you could quite easily imagine how that could have caused a kind of heart issue. Here, obviously, we don't know, and so right. I totally agree that there should not be baseless speculation about what caused this. Yeah, I believe there is some evidence, there are some studies that have expressed concern about some level of COVID vaccination in teenage males, possibly being associated with a slight increase in the risk of myocarditis. We don't know that that has anything to do with this case. We don't even know if this individual was vaccinated in the first place. And also there have been studies and suggestions that COVID itself can be associated with an increased risk of a heart condition. So everybody needs to just kind of like chill out, not just go looking for information that confirms all their priors, and the died suddenly crowd online, the people who want to attribute everything to the COVID vaccine. Honestly, they sound a little bit like before there was a category of people who were attributing all deaths to COVID. Even if you might have happened to have COVID and been in like a motorcycle crash, and they're like, oh, another COVID victim. Like it was true that some of the fatality numbers were being exaggerated or misreported in the media. But that's like also all the wild speculation about vaccine injuries is on the same level.
Yeah, sudden deaths happen. They happen in sports. Shaquille O'Neal's son, Sharif, in 2018, actually suffered a similar emergency with his heart and had to have heart surgery. This is especially a problem with athletes that are pushing themselves. I can imagine being the son of Shaquille O'Neal or LeBron James means you might push yourself a little harder even to live up to your father's legacy. It happens. I have a friend who I played college lacrosse with. He was on the men's team, and he was playing on a club team in graduate school a year after graduating from undergrad with us, and he ended up dying suddenly on the field.
Oh my God.
This happens frequently in sports when you're pushing your body. I think it's also important we get the evidence right. So they found in most cases that when you get the vaccine, you are less likely to have a heart attack, myocarditis. If you get COVID, you actually have a higher chance of getting myocarditis than if you are vaccinated. So this idea that getting the vaccine makes you more likely to have a heart attack is not true. It prevents COVID infection, and then COVID gives you a higher chance of having a heart attack. It is better to get the vaccine if you're worried about heart attacks, is basically what the statistics show. So the only exception to this was men under 40 with the Moderna vaccine.
Right.
And we're not so sure that, this data would hold true over many years. Is it statistically significant enough for us to say that you should not get the Moderna vaccine because of this risk? So for men under 40, there were 4 extra cases of myocarditis associated with the first dose of the Pfizer vaccine, 14 extra cases with the first dose of Moderna for every 1 million men vaccinated. But the risk rose with the second dose for all 3 vaccines studied. It was the highest for Moderna's, which had an additional 97 myocarditis cases per 100 million. And then unvaccinated men with COVID-19, it was just 6 additional myocarditis cases per million. So we're still talking very small numbers here.
Yes, we're talking small numbers. I mean, the thing is, though, because getting the vaccine does not stop you from getting COVID, it's almost, in some sense, you're going to face the risk, whatever risk COVID causes of myocarditis is, I mean, I don't know what the numbers are. It's like 80, 90, I think upwards of 90% of people in the U.S. have had COVID by now. Yeah. So that is a risk you're going to face anyway. So it's not so much the risk of COVID versus the risk of the vaccine, because the COVID risk is going to be borne anyway. So is there an additional risk associated with the vaccine? And you're right to put out that it's not at all age categories. In fact, Sanjay Gupta, who we just played a clip of, I've seen him say before that, and I agree with this. If you're particularly a male, particularly teenager, an athlete, and you're concerned about this, maybe 1 dose was the right number for you. Maybe none if you've already had COVID. But that's clearly something that each individual family person should work out, should consult their own doctors, et cetera. So the idea that we would mandate this for this category, and I have to point out, many colleges still in the U.S. are taking this decision away from the individual, away from the family, in consultation with their doctors, but saying to be a student at this campus, you have to get vaccinated, even though getting vaccinated is no guarantee that you won't get infected anyway. There's not going to shut down or make impossible kind of like outbreaks on college campuses. This is virtually the only kind of vaccine mandate that endures in the U.S. is ones for a population that is not particularly at risk of an extremely negative COVID-related health outcome. Why you would require them of a vaccination on them doesn't make any scientific sense to me whatsoever.
Right. We don't even know what kind of vaccine Bronny James got, or if he did. It might be a requirement for him to play.
I don't know if it's
a
a requirement at USC. I know my own. I'm a graduate of the University of Michigan, and I know they're still planning to require the bivalent booster, I believe, this fall. Right. So I find that pretty indefensible.
But, it sounds like that Bronny James is out of the ICU, which is good, and is recovering, spending time with family. That's good. This is a young kid who pushes his body, plays sports pretty hard. We had Shaquille O'Neal's son, in 2018, before COVID, before the COVID vaccine, also requiring surgery to fix a similar abnormality after.
You're right. You're absolutely right to point out that, athletes work themselves very, very, very hard, and yes, things like this, they're rare, but they do happen. And just because you think you're picking up on more reports of this kind of thing does not mean it's getting more prevalent. You could be paying better attention to it. There could be more reporting on it. It could be going viral more if it's social media where you're seeing these injuries, accidents, even deaths. You have to look at the statistics to see if it's actually there's a kind of uptick, and then you'd have to see, well, is there an uptick because COVID is itself a health risk?
Right. There's this confirmation bias you have, right? I started driving a Ford Bronco. Now when I go out driving, whenever I see a Ford Bronco, I notice it. I'm like, suddenly there's so many Ford Broncos. Or do I just like the car and I notice when other people are also driving it, right? It's the confirmation bias there. I think it's also important to know that this wasn't the kind of rigorous medical testing that we usually have because they want us to get the vaccines out, right? We couldn't really do a randomized controlled trial in this sense. So they're assessing the general population. Is there a different kind of person, someone who's maybe more conscious of their health, who maybe has had health risks in the past, who seeks out getting vaccinated vaccinated more than someone who doesn't? Is that why we're seeing the difference here? There's that self-selection bias that, a randomized controlled trial would account for. There's a lot going on here. And I think, a time to spread your conspiracy theory when someone has a heart attack who is a young, famous athlete is just not it.
Well, we obviously wish him a full recovery. Tomorrow on Rising, journalist Matt Taibbi will be joining the show to discuss the latest on the COVID origins debate.
Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts.
See you tomorrow.
Bye, y'all.